Kia ora koutou, nā mai, haere mai, and welcome to this session. We have got the virtual roadshow around New Zealand that the economic development agencies and local councils are putting on for the EHF Fellows. And this session is from Queenstown and also sort of just slightly covering the greater of the South. And what you'll hear today is about general demographics and statistics of the region, what sort of sectors the region sees as opportunities and resources that it can build on. And you'll hear about case studies or projects that are current in the region. And this will give you a good understanding of each region in New Zealand in a similar sort of format so that you're able to process and compare the information, and you'll actually have a point or two, a contact sort of point or two in the region. And it will show sort of the opportunities of how you could live, work, or work from afar there, how you can build a business there. And now I'm going to just introduce you to the panel. So today we have got Sharon Fifield from Queenstown Lakes Economic Development Agency. Hi there, Sharon. And also we have Peter Harris from the Economic Development Agency. I've known Peter for a long time, so it's actually great to connect with him again. And then also we will be joined by Olivia Wensley, she's the CEO of the startup Queenstown community over in Queenstown and Wanaka. The organisation is. So over to you, Sharon.
Okay, great. I'll just share my screen here. Can you see that okay? All good?
Yes, perfect, thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Sharon Fifield from the, oh, hang on a minute. We have gone way in advance. Sorry. Let's start that again. So you've already been introduced to us. So I'm just going to tell you a bit about our economy, what it's like to live and do business here, some of the challenges we're facing that Edmund Hillary Fellows could get involved in, and also some of the interesting new business and opportunities based from here. What makes our district unique? For a small district, we certainly punch above our weight. We're based in the Otago region in the South Island of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Our closest main centres are Dunedin, which is around a 3.5-hour drive, and then Invercargill in the south, which is a 2-hour scenic drive. We're often referred to as the jewel in New Zealand's tourism crown. In fact, in normal pre-COVID times, we hosted over 3 million visitors a year to our district. Our landscape's pretty stunning, and you only need to look out the window to realise why. Mountains, lakes, and also we have a bit of a small city vibe. Queenstown probably has more bar restaurants per capita than any other town in New Zealand, so if you're a foodie, it's a pretty great place to be. We're also highly skilled and a pretty educated bunch. Queenstown Lakes residents hold degrees or master's level qualifications at a rate of 37% more than the national average. And we have a high number of directors that are based here. A bit about our economy. Tourism is clearly our dominant industry, and it comprises around 40% of our GDP pre-COVID, followed by construction. 6 out of 10 jobs are in tourism, and we have that's from a low population base of only 48,000. So from that 48,000, one single resident is catering to 34 international visitors per year. So that's a big ask for a small community. Unemployment is very low. We sit at around 2%, and actually sometimes below that. There's actually more jobs than people here. So we do rely on our international workforce to come and work in the district, which makes for a really great, diverse community. So as you can imagine, from understanding a bit about our economy, COVID was a major shock, and it's accelerated the need for diversification. It has also meant we're seeing many more remote workers and a high number of self-employed in the district. Plus, we have a lot of new non-tourism businesses basing themselves from here, which we will take you through some examples later. Why we love it here? I guess Queenstown Lakes, is the place that people choose to live, and they've made a conscious decision to move here. We're actually a district of pioneers and innovators. We're home of the world's first commercial bungee jump, if that's your thing. We're a truly 4-season destination. Every season's quite different, and I think that's what the locals love about it as well. We've got 4 commercial ski areas and a number of club fields. So winter is actually really quite a happening time. And then there's amazing hikes if you love the outdoors. The mountain biking, we have an aspiration to become a world-class mountain biking destination. And then obviously for summer as well, there's plenty of lakes and waterways so you can get out in the water. Another great thing about the district is, for such a small place, we have an international airport and we have direct flights to East Coast Australia. So it's actually very easy to get around. A great events calendar as well. So we hold world-class events, lots of multi-sport events. We have the New Zealand Golf Open here locally, the International Marathon, Queenstown International Marathon, and Arrowtown Autumn Festival. So autumn's a beautiful time to be here as well. And also we've got lots of really talented creatives here locally, and a thriving art scene. Just last week, actually, we had a new multi-purpose arts and cultural space open called Teatro Mera, which is really exciting for our region. And I guess aside from just being an awesome place to be and lots of things to do, we're seeing a growing ecosystem of non-tourism businesses as well. And along with that, growth in co-working spaces and hubs as well. So it's a good place to kind of rub shoulders with other people who are you're doing business with. For the families, there's really good schools, and it's easy to get your kids to school as well. They can bike or they can walk to school. And what I love, because I've actually recently moved back from Australia myself, is the fact that the kids can go skiing. Like in winter, they have days to go up the mountain skiing. I mean, what a place to be a kid. So that's pretty cool. So as good as all of that kind of sounds, and yes, it's an awesome place to live, we are evolving, which makes it a pretty exciting time to be based in the district. The work of the Economic Development Unit and others here is to build a strong, diverse economy that supports sustainable and inclusive growth, and to make sure that there are opportunities for our kids and for everyone here. So I'm going to show you a video now, which highlights some of the work and the talent that are helping us with that evolution.
What I've seen post-COVID is a really interesting opportunity for the Queenstown Lakes region to capitalise on something that's happening naturally. There's a huge amount of tech talent coming to this region and returning to New Zealand.
Well, in short, it's paradise. That's no secret. This is an amazing part of the world, and it was absolutely for us a lifestyle move to come here. When I came here, I was working for a small tech startup from the US, and we developed eye tracking technology. I've got some amazing memories of demonstrating augmented reality headsets to mates in a house that we were renting in Luggett. And then that small startup was bought by a company you may have heard of called Google. There was a short period of time where I was allowed to continue working here. These are organizations that have spent a decade saying that there's no way that people could adequately do their jobs from home. And then overnight, they've been shown actually your workforce is quite capable of doing their jobs from home. I guess there was a realization of it's not just my body that I want to have in Wanaka, it's my brain too, because there is so much neat stuff going on here, and an opportunity to participate in that was undeniable.
I've been in Queenstown for almost a year. We arrived 2 weeks before lockdown last year. Previously, I was a Silicon Valley talent executive. when I look around Queenstown, I feel like those great minds are there. It's really interesting, actually. Like I mentioned, I've been here for about a year, and I've met these pockets of really great thought leaders that you kind of go, oh, that person's in Queenstown. Maybe I haven't met them yet, but I've heard, yes, this person that started this company lives in Queenstown, or they relocated, or as a result of COVID, they decided to come home and be here in Queenstown. The opportunities are kind of endless there, because once you get people here and they fall in love with it, I mean, you meet so many people all the time. I'm one of them that kind of says, oh, well, I came here on vacation and I sort of never left. I mean, it really, I feel like every time I meet an American here, that's exactly what's happened.
There's already precedent for regions in America which have been like Queenstown physically. So one example is Bend in Oregon. When we talk about being the next Silicon Valley, I actually want to be the next Bend, Oregon, but not many people understand that reference yet. Bend, Oregon, 10 years ago, it was a tourist town. There was no other industry. There was a population of 100,000 and they had mountains and lakes. But what happened is some venture capitalists realized that it's an amazing place to live, very attractive lifestyle. So they purposely set out to build a tech industry. And so 10 years later now, it's a thriving tech hub. It's transformed the region for the better. It's pumped a huge amount of money into the economy. Developing our technology industry in the Queenstown Lakes region is a really good complement to what we have already here. So we've already got the talent that live here and they choose to work remotely. It's a zero carbon export. And it's infinitely scalable. It's actually quite a sustainable way of bolstering our economy and making it more resilient.
Distinction worth making is that to some people, a tech hub just means computer programmers. And really a tech hub could encompass more than that. It's all manner of skill sets that are related to technology in one way or the other. We don't need to be the next Facebook in Queenstown just writing code. There are all manner of innovative and technology-related things that become enabled when a community supports the existence of activities like that.
There's also this Kiwi ingenuity as far as the lifestyle here goes that I really want to embrace for my children. I mean, this is the adventure capital of the world, and I think it transcends hospitality. This risk-taking, this daring, this innovation, all these things, if you coupled that with also being kind of a risk-taking tech-leading place, I mean, it could just be this magnificent epicenter of ingenuity, groundbreaking innovation, thought leadership, across the board.
Lots of us definitely were never ready to completely take the plunge into the Silicon Valley lifestyle. For some people, the Silicon Valley lifestyle is the best thing ever. But for me, the New Zealand lifestyle is the best thing ever.
Peter, do you want to take us through some of our challenges?
Sure, thanks, Sharon. That's a hard act to follow, that video, isn't it? So I'm the Economic Development Manager for the district, and I'm just going to run through some of the things that we're facing up to, I guess. And some of these issues were there pre-COVID, but as Sharon said earlier, I think they've been highlighted over COVID, and I guess we're leaning into them more than we ever have before. The first is destination management, and we've spent probably 70 years building a tourism industry into what it is now, and it is an amazing place to come and visit. But I guess through COVID and the community have really started going, look, we need to see the visitor industry as more than an industry and see it as a system. And we're working on a destination management plan now, which is aiming to have regenerative tourism here, which is a really exciting transition and a pretty tough one, because you've got a lot of businesses here who are still struggling to recover from COVID. So there's a real tension in there. But I think it's a really healthy tension. And I think that's going to be a really exciting evolution for the industry and for our community. As part of that, we're doing some research at the moment into what we're calling the lifetime value of the visitor. So the traditional way of measuring the value of a visitor is how much money did they spend for let's say the 3 days that they're in Queenstown Lakes. But as Katie alluded to in the video, actually, I mean, there's a lot of people who come here and fall in love with the place and then choose to invest or live here or study in New Zealand. And at the moment, we think there's an opportunity there join those dots better and to see our district as in some ways a shop front for anybody that wants to have a long-term relationship with international people and international visitors, because their value is much more, or their value could be much more than what they spend as a tourist. That's a really interesting piece of work, and I think as that comes to fruition, it's got a real opportunity to change the way that the role that this district plays in our national economy, really. Climate action, we're really as concerned about that as anybody, and we have a climate and biodiversity action plan that's just been revamped. So there's a lot of work going into that, and the community is really fired up about it. It's something we get a massive amount of community feedback on, and there's a lot of people doing some really good work there. But transportation, for instance, is a real challenge for us because we're isolated. A lot of people fly here, but even if you don't fly, there's a lot of travel and transport carbon that we need to address. Diversification, and we'll go into more of this. We are working on a diversification strategy at the moment. It's a real challenge because, as Sharon alluded to earlier, I mean, tourism is the dominant industry, and then construction is the second, and then there's a big gap. Now, there is some really interesting things going on, and Olivia will talk about some examples. But this is a massive piece of work for us and a massive challenge. So some of the sort of industry areas that we've been supporting and are looking at is film, and we've got an example of a really exciting development coming up in that area that we'll talk about later. Energy. So as I said, I mean, we've got a carbon issue around energy, and we've got one electricity line into our district or into Queenstown, and so that runs a risk for us. And another niche that we have some really interesting businesses in is in the sort of technology where the hospitality industry and the tourism industry use. So Magic Memories is probably our most advanced one, but there is a number of businesses that are doing software solutions for hospitality and tourism, and that's a really nice natural fit for, I guess, for our dominant industry. So that's something we really want to encourage.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Sharon.
Yep.
And I guess the other side of that, it's not all about business. I mean, there's some really interesting people leaning into some social good and environmental good projects. So from a creative point of view, Sharon mentioned Te Ao Mira, which is a new cultural centre. Wanaka does a lot of work in water quality and working with farmers and catchment groups. We're blessed to be to house the head office of the New Zealand branch of the Aspen Institute, and that's been going now for a couple of years, but that's a really exciting part to I guess it starts to round out what our community is. The Wakatupu Wildlife Trust, so there is a lot of predator trapping to try and rebuild our natural bird population, so possum trapping and those sorts of things. And then Mana Tahuna is a group of local Māori who really were came out and evolved and really stepped up over COVID. And so they have been doing a lot of social work, things like even vaccinations, but also starting their own businesses and working on water quality in one of our local lakes. So that's a really exciting evolution, because prior to COVID, that group didn't really exist. And so that's a really exciting part of what's happening in our community.
Mm.
So this is Debbie and Paul Brainard, and they're probably a really lovely example of the impact that the HF has had in our district. So they fell in love with New Zealand over many, many years, but finally settled in Glenorchy, and Debbie tells the story of driving past the local camping ground that had been closed down and going home and telling Paul that they needed to buy it. And really long journey, but they've created this amazing eco accommodation facility, which has state-of-the-art. Paul has come from the tech industry, and so he's got amazing sensors on everything and amazing technology around composting and those sorts of things. And and it's beautiful. If you ever get a chance to come, it's stunning. And the other amazing thing is they've gifted it to the community. So they've basically funded the creation of this amazing place, and then they've created a community trust, and they've gifted that whole facility to that community trust. And it wasn't an easy journey. I mean, the community were a little bit sort of like, well, who are these people and what's their motivation? But over time, Debbie and Paul's motivation has become incredibly clear, and so generous. And Glenorchy, I mean, the other thing is they've set it up as a civil defence facility, so that when an earthquake happens, because we do live close to the main divide, it's all completely set up so that they can go off grid and support their community. So yeah, there's so many layers to what they've done out there. It is an incredible place to go. So in terms of how we're attacking the economic diversification work, there's a lot of work to be done in that area. Obviously, if we're going to move the needle on jobs outside of tourism and construction, it's a big effort. But we're working on a portfolio, as you can see here, and there are a number of options, and we're just working through where we put most of our effort. So we're working on growing our own. So Olivia will talk about Startup Queenstown Lakes. We're bringing people together and fostering collaboration, not only here, but across our region, across Otago and Southland. And then the other side of that portfolio is about attracting the right people and attracting businesses to come to the district as well. And Sharon will talk about Home for Healthier Business, which is one of our initiatives. Yeah, so that's an exciting journey, and we've made a start, but anybody that wants to join on the journey, they're more than welcome.
Jonathan, would you like to come in and tell us about the Research and Innovation Centre?
Sure, thank you for having me, guys, and I'd love to sort of just give a very brief overview of what we're doing. I guess with these things, I always like to sort of start with the why we did it, apart from obviously all of the reasons that and all of the wonderful things that Peter and his team are doing at the QLDC. We as a group, we're a property development group first and foremost, but we're a little bit unusual in that because we own 150 hectares of urban zone land in a relatively small town. We always saw ourselves as a catalyst for what the future of the town looks like and things like that. And what we really worry about, what we concern ourselves with our developments is not, hey, what's the maximum we can do on this land and try to build a big building and go from there, but how does it benefit surrounding things so that they are synergistic and they work with each other for the greater good. And so the reason why we were interested in research and innovation is twofold. One is myself. I'm an engineer by training and practice as a patent attorney, commercializing New Zealand IP for a good part of 10 years. Have always been sort of interested in that world in terms of how do we take New Zealand's sort of R&I sector to the world globally, and looking at sort of some of the problem solving things that it can do for not just our region, but New Zealand and the world globally. The other reason for our interest in this is we have a shareholder. His name is Dr. Herman Hauser. Some of you may have heard of him. He's the founder of Acorn Computers, as well as Arm Limited, one of the giants and leading sort of the research and innovation world and the pioneer in that IT sector. So we're very fortunate to have him as a shareholder, and he's been with us for 20, 30 years. So he has always been telling us about all the things and interesting sort of involvement from a business standpoint that he's involved with. So we have always leaned on him for a lot of that advice, around what does our development look like for the future, and what is he seeing around the world in that tech space that we can incorporate into it. So back to the project itself, we had always sort of looked to do it, but pre-COVID, we had been sort of landowners. We've been sort of dragged towards providing infrastructure to deal with some of shortfalls in terms of tourism and the impacts that it has. The silver lining with COVID, I guess, allowed us to basically clear our plate and really look at, hey, look, what are our priorities in terms of projects? And this one jumped to the top of the four because Queenstown, as Peter mentioned, is in need of diversification, and it can really do with a bit of a push in that sense. So we wrote to the central government via its sort of COVID relief shovel ready program, and we said, hey, look, we've got an infrastructure proposal that we could collaborate with you and QLDC and everyone that's sort of doing all the wonderful things in Queenstown on, with the view that we will create the physical platform to gather all the people that are doing, because in this space, what we tend to find is people have their own little universes and they're doing it all in their universes. But we thought, wouldn't it be great if we actually can create a beacon to actually bring everyone together and collaborate and work together to solve some of these problems, and in turn, be a facilitator and enabler of ongoing research and innovation as well, for obviously the diversification economy, but also to increase the productivity and things like that. So I'm not gonna sort of jump into all the details of some of the things we're doing, but we've really focused on what are some of the enabling infrastructure and people that are needed to get this thing going. So we've worked very closely with Otago University around sort of setting up a deeper presence from that research and innovation side of things here in Queenstown, using this as a leverage. Secondly, in terms of that data capability, we're working with Chorus, which is essentially the probably the only data infrastructure provider here in New Zealand, to work on a bit of an upgrade for the region and into this building, including hyperfiber capabilities as well as dark fiber capabilities if applications required. So and there's a few other bits and pieces which I won't bore everybody about today, and I'm sure we don't have time, but that's what we're up to. And the building's under construction now, and we would love to talk to anyone that wants to be part of the journey with us and collaborate. So thank you, and look forward to engaging further.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. Oh, Olivia, you're going to talk about talent and lots of other things.
Hello. Gosh, it's really hard to showcase our region in such a short presentation. I mean, what Jonathan was just talking about, the project is so incredible and it's very, very exciting what's going to happen. It's going to be a huge catalyst for our region, getting all kinds of talent and IP to our region, so very exciting. So my name's Olivia Wensley. I'm the CEO of Startup Queenstown Lakes. And what we do is we work with startups and a lot of other talented people in our wider ecosystem who support us startups. So there's a huge range, whether it's investors or experienced founders. There's a community that wraps around our amazing startup community. So I'll talk a bit about what we've been seeing post-COVID. So one thing that our region has is talent. So before moving to Queenstown, I was living in Singapore, where I was a lawyer for an investment bank. And my husband's family is originally from the Lower South Island, and he mentioned the idea of moving over, and it was a crazy idea to think of because it couldn't be more different from Singapore as a place to live. But we just went for it, and it was the best decision that we ever made. And we keep finding people that have moved to the region because they just absolutely fall in love with it. So there's a huge amount of there's expats, there's people from all over the world. Our community is very, very international, and it blows my mind the people that we come across who have been visiting or living in the region for quite a long time and just doing the most incredible things. So we've got a lot of people. Well, after COVID, I noticed particularly that there's an acceleration of talent coming to our region because, as Elliot mentioned in the video, that COVID has disrupted everything in the way that things work. So the way that we work. And so what we noticed was a lot of talent coming to our region, because if you can live anywhere, then why not live in paradise? You can have it all. So what's interesting is that it works quite well in terms of time zone, with people that are working in America with so the time zone works. So Elliot, as he mentioned, was working for Google remotely. And what was funny is that he laughs, he says that he actually spent less time commuting than his colleagues. So he spent less time traveling by taking a flight once a month to Silicon Valley and staying there on campus for a week and coming back and working remotely from Luggett for the rest of the time. So it's really funny. His colleagues were laughing. They're like, "You're commuting from New Zealand?" But it worked. And so that was incredible. So what we're really noticing is that we're becoming a globally recognized destination for tech talent. And not just tech talent, but all kinds of amazing people who've done incredible things. So the Queenstown Lakes region, it has the more investor migrants living in the district than anywhere else outside of Auckland. And I understand why, because there's just this, well, for those of you who have visited, you'll understand, but for those of you who haven't visited, I mean, many of you will be familiar with the Lord of the Rings movies and seeing all these beautiful pictures. This is literally what it looks like. It's incredible, and it doesn't get old. We still pinch ourselves. How is this reality? But it is just the most beautiful place. So we have a lot of ultra high net worth philanthropists, a lot of established tech founders who want to give back and invest and advise. And one of them, a great example, is Paul Brainerd. And what he and Debbie have done is just absolutely incredible in terms of impact and so visionary. So they've really transformed the community. So there's a lot, I'm receiving a lot of inquiries from Edmund Hillary Fellows. It's been wonderful to tap into this network and working with Michelle and speaking to all these amazing people who are really interested in coming. And I've been lucky enough to meet a few of them in the past few weeks coming through now that the borders are open, and I really look forward to meeting more. So one of the opportunities, and just touching on what Peter said, it's very, very important work to diversify, because what's happened is with post-COVID, the effects on our region and the economy, it's been almost like a natural disaster. Christchurch had an earthquake, which is very visible. We've had an economic disaster, and we're recovering from it. It's really emphasized the importance of diversification and getting, diversification is a form of economic insurance. So we're really focused on building a stable community with different industries as well as tourism. So we recognize that tech and startups are a really great complement to our region because they can increase productivity, overcome our tyranny of distance with New Zealand in a sustainable way. So what we have is a southern ecosystem with our friends in Dunedin and in Southland. So we have talent coming through the University of Otago, and as Jonathan mentioned, that we're really strengthening that connection to get more of a presence in Queenstown. So then the talent can support the wonderful companies that are setting up in our region, and we're getting bolstered by multiple data centres being set up in the region and faster internet connection. And it's wonderful. So we're really seeing a total transformation in a really positive, exciting way. Our local ecosystem has a lot of companies from at different stages, but we're seeing some fantastic innovation here. A trend that we've noticed post-COVID is that we've had companies that are setting up satellite offices, or even moving, the principals are moving and setting up their office in Queenstown and working for truly global companies around the world. So it's become this thing where lifestyle has become prioritized, and you can have it all. So it's wonderful. So this is just a snapshot of who we have, and this is one good example of a company that the founders have come back to New Zealand. So this is Adrian and her husband have relocated last year from London. So they run VoxSmart, which is a global fintech company. So what they do is they do communication surveillance for trade reconstruction. So when traders do a deal for compliance, they can reconstruct all their communications over a number of platforms like WhatsApp and text messaging, and seeing the whole trade reconstruction. So they raised a large amount of money last year. So they got a $38 million Series B from a deep tech investor, and so this follows on from their Series A, where they got more, when they received that funding from Deep Bridge Capital and NatWest Bank. So if we just flick back to that slide, if we could just go back one, please, Sharon. So just here, so this is what Adrian said. She said Queenstown is an ideal location for VoxSmart's presence on the ground in the APAC region due to the investment in the innovation hub, which Jonathan mentioned, with the goal of turning the city into a global leader in technology. What's interesting as well, if we just go to the next slide, we'll show where VoxSmart has their offices. So if you had a look, these are their customers on the left-hand side, and you can see that their offices are dotted around the world. And so when you look at where they're located, they have great coverage in terms of time zones. And this is another reason why we're seeing companies that are interested in moving to New Zealand, so that they can cover the APAC region. It has a good crossover with America, and it really, to run a truly global company, it's a great place to set up. Right, this is another example. This excites me because this is a fusion of technology with sustainability. This is Phytrix. So they are a phytoremediation company. So it's a startup, one of the companies that I work with, hemp, which can actually rehabilitate the environment through removing contaminants out of soil. So, for example, their strain of hemp can pull out heavy metals from soil, so it can be used for site remediation. It's really exciting. So they just raised 1.5 million last year through Bridgewest Ventures in New Zealand. A New Zealand-based deep tech incubator. They'll be raising their Series A later this year, and they're just going from strength to strength. So it's very, just one example of very exciting things happening in our region. This is another one here. So this is MedWorld. The founder is Sam Hazeldine. So he lobbied the World Medical Association to change the Declaration of Geneva to get doctors to put their own well-being as a priority, as well as their patients. And so what he's realized, and what COVID has really driven home, is that doctors need more support against burnout. They need a community, and they need to be sharing knowledge in a smarter way. So he's building MedWorld, which is a way of breaking down silos and encouraging collaboration with the medical community. So he raised $2.7 million in seed capital last year. He's raising his Series A later this year, and he's going to be creating 50 local jobs in the next 12 to 24 months. And is great. So this is an interesting example of a product that's coming. So, and what's notable about this company is the founder, Matthew Waddock. So he was living in Shanghai for the last 15 years. So he's a Kiwi who's living overseas. He's an example of one of the returned expats. So he came back to his home in Queenstown. And while he was here, he decided to move his company Switch. So Switch is a electric motorcycle company. They just won Bike of the Year last year in the largest bike magazine. I'm not too sure what the name is, but it was a huge award. And what he has done is decided to move manufacturing back on shore to New Zealand. So instead of getting his products made in China, which would be very easy for him, he's decided that it's actually better to do it in New Zealand, and there's huge brand appeal. for this. And so he's being supported by Callaghan Innovation, which is our government's innovation agency. And yeah, he's going from strength to strength. So it's really exciting to see that coming out of our region as well. This is the wonderful Dino Vendetti, as I'm sure a lot of you know, and unfortunately Dino wasn't able to attend live, but I'll talk a bit about his impact and the work that he's been doing. So in the video earlier, I mentioned the comparison with Bend, Oregon. And so this came from my discussions with Dino. So just after COVID happened, I was introduced to Dino and I was telling him about the difficulties that our region was facing. And he said, well, this sounds familiar. So what he did is really got the tech industry to Bend, Oregon to transform the local economy. And so he's been a wonderful source of knowledge for our community to really take those learnings, and he's very invested in transforming our community. So it's great to have the perfect person helping us with this transformation that we're facing. And this is one example of Dino's direct involvement in the community, is that he is involved with Silverlight Studios. So Silverlight Studios is a film studio that's based just outside of Wanaka, and it is going to be an absolutely amazing project. So it's just received resource consent, and it's going to, I mean, this picture is sort of doesn't do enough justice of the vision. I've seen this we had a 3D video that shows it a bit more, but it's a huge file. So if you can just imagine, it's this incredible place. They're going to have a reconstruction of Venice. They're going to have these streets, they're mocking up a full Central Park style area for shooting. But what's incredible is that they can remove the facades from the fronts of buildings and change it up. They can even remove the artificial trees and switch them so that they can match any of the most filmed locations in the world. So the reason why they're building Venice is that it's notoriously hard to film because of noise, and as there's issues with water rising there, and it's going to become harder and harder. So that's one of the reasons why they're doing that here. And it's just an incredible project, and it's going to make a huge difference to our community. So when this first came to my attention, this project and the vision, the first thing I thought of was the Edmund Hillary Fellowship. So after meeting Michelle and Peter down in Queenstown, and just talking about how we can get local projects with the EHF working together, and when we became aware of this, that was my first thought. I thought, okay, I bet we have fellows who could help this project. And so sure enough, I spoke to Dino, and we also got in touch with Tom Staggs, and he has been able to bring his amazing background as the COO for Disney to this project as well. So he's come on board as well. So it's just an incredible example of sort of local vision tapping with EHF talent, and how you can just make incredible things happen. So I'm very, very excited to see this project get underway shortly.
Cool. Thanks, Olivia. That's amazing. It's so good just to learn about all of the great things that are happening in our district. We're almost finished now. I just thought I'd let you know that in our efforts with the Economic Development Unit and with Olivia to diversify the economy, we do have a website called healthierbusiness.org. And there's many more case studies there of people who are doing interesting things on the ground. And there's also an opportunity to, book a call, but you can get in touch with us directly. But there's lots of information on that site just around what it is actually like to live here, some useful information around, commercial real estate, residential real estate if you're looking for a place to live, schools, all of that kind of thing is on there. So definitely worth having a chat, having a look. And then I thought we'll finish with just a short video which is one of our kind of, recently new locals, I guess, Rod Drury, who is a New Zealand technology entrepreneur. He founded the accounting software company Xero, and he's doing some pretty awesome things in the district. So we thought we'd just close on him, and then I think we might have some time for questions at the end. Hopefully this will work.
After I finished working full time, I wanted something to do every day. So I came down to Queenstown and met some friends that were riding bike tracks. And I thought, man, this is something I can do every day, learn to do jumps. There's so many trails, so I've been getting quite involved with that. But what I really love about Queenstown, it's a real crossroads. You get people that decide to be here. And most people in New Zealand who are doing good business are here twice a year, so you do have time to spend quality time with people, go outside, go for walks, have really good dinners, good conversations. It feels like a real crossroads, and we're looking forward to when the borders open, because a lot of Australians were coming here before COVID as well, so it's a really great base to do good work. Some of the fun projects we've been doing, especially with COVID happening, is thinking about how we diversify Queenstown. So looking to create opportunities for clusters of people to come here. Some of the programs we've been working on have been to attract specific talent. Machine learning and AI is a very obvious one. People around the world are hiring for that now, and also doing some work in the intersection between film and gaming, virtual production studios, things like that. And at a personal level, I've really loved doing a restoration project. So we're doing quite a bit of work in Lake Hayes at the moment. We want to accelerate the cleaning of Lake Hayes and been planting lots of trees. In fact, in Wynyard Bike Park where we are now, we put 1,000 trees in last month, and seeing the young kids who are, amazing athletes, being able to, be part of the forestry growing is pretty special as well. What's great about Queenstown is most people around the world have been here and they know it. What we've seen is a huge inbound demand for people wanting to relocate here, so they get the benefits of lifestyle, but if they know there's clusters of other technology people here, it's a great place to live. It's quite unique when you talk to tech leaders around the world, being able to have teams that can actually work together, collaborate, have that serendipitous conversation. That's what makes the difference. That's where a really cool thought comes. So Queenstown in New Zealand is special. We do have a window, and if we can now, that with the good work we've done around sort of protecting the country, allow people to come in and be this place where thought happens, this crossroads of thought, it's pretty exciting.
Amazing. Love it. Thank you, team. Now, before we go to any questions, does actually, Todd, if you're still there, or Peter, do you have any questions, or is Sarah still sitting there? Otherwise, what I'll get Peter for you to do, Peter Maher, is actually just give a bit of a why you've chosen Wanaka as a fellow as well. You'll need to unmute, Peter.
Sorry, I was waiting in case there were any questions, but yeah, certainly my context, or a little bit of my background, so you know where I'm coming from. I've lived in Denver, Colorado, Nashville, Tennessee, just outside of London, and in Cornwall in the UK, so a little bit of a varied experience. So for me, Wanaka was a good reminder of Denver back in the day, or Breckenridge in the mountains. So I was very much, I fell in love with Denver for, I think the phrase was, you come for winter and you stay for summer. It was similar to Wanaka in a sense. So in a way, when I came to Wanaka, it was a good reminder of the good times in Denver, which is similar in some ways to Bend, Oregon. So we chose Wanaka over Queenstown, really splitting hairs in a way, but Wanaka was a little bit slower for us. We just prefer a little bit of a slower life. Not as many options for food and such here, which we're okay with. So it depends on your lifestyle, but we're able to get out in the mountains and the hills every day. So right after this call, I'll be going for a hike around Lake Wanaka. So yeah, it's hard to beat.
Nice. Thanks, Peter. Todd, do you have any questions? Otherwise, I will just round it up.
No questions, just looking forward to exploring it in person.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's amazing. And I learned so much today, even though I've had the conversations with you all separately. It was actually great to see that in PowerPoint form, and the videos are amazing. And Jonathan, it was great to see what you're going to be doing there with the Research and Innovation Hub. Like, Olivia has spoken about it, but it's just kind of like seeing, I think, the imagery of it a bit more and hearing you talk about it and just what exactly is in there. I can see that being of benefit to a lot of fellows and a lot of companies around that would, around the world that could actually come to Queenstown. I think this is the one chance for Queenstown and the greater area to actually really hone in and I think make a tech hub down there. And I think you have got that good basis for that now. And it is the turning point, right? That remote COVID unfortunately has created that turning point for us. So we just have to capitalize on it as a country and as a region. And I really do think you can do that with this. So I do appreciate all of your time today. Thank you.